Welcome everyone. My name is Craig Taylor, Senior Director here at Broadridge. Today I'm going to be walking us through the presentation around API testing for microservices and a little bit of like the CICD and how we're using it within some of the organizations at Broadridge. Quick little bio of myself. I'm not going to read through it. It is on the website, but I've been at Broadridge for the past 7 years. I'm responsible for a few different divisions here. I did come from CA Technologies, which is now part of Broadcom. Majority of my career has been inside of QA, but I have had a number of other roles in there just around development management, architect, a few other pieces, worked with a lot of clients on site, remotely, and did a lot of different training programs and worked across, in my mind, a spectrum of roles within the IT organizations. A few fun facts: love sports and video games. All right. This is the abstract of the presentation I'll be doing. Very high level, and we'll walk through it, but really just going to talk about how my team is currently using Sauce Labs API testing platform. You will see it referenced, and there is screenshots along the way. API Fortress is what was branded when we were using it, or that we're using it. So we're going to focus on some of the advantages of it. It's not really meant to be a full training of API Fortress API testing platform, but really I wanted to focus in on not so much of the core functionality, but a lot more of the ways that some of the different roles, people are using the tool, and hopefully through this presentation, you guys will be able to take a look at it and hopefully get some new ideas if you are interested in using the tool. This is going to be the agenda. I'll talk a little bit about the application under test that we'll go through, so hopefully it lines up very similar to pieces of what you're using within your own organizations. At the same time, these are going to be the four main areas that I'll end up touching on throughout the presentation. So dashboard, some of the quality areas, how we're integrating CICD, and then, just towards the end, we'll talk about a little bit how we're using the tool to not only do, data validation, but also functional validation, because, some of the tools we really focus functional, but we've actually been able to, expand on the tool and get into some of the data validation. Okay, so really just high level, keeping some of the trade secrets in the back end here. So just going to talk about the application that we really use and focus this tool on for the most part. This is, it is used across a few different areas, but this is the bread and butter of where it kind of came from in my organization, and so we'll talk about that. So ultimately, it's a big integration platform for internal and external clients. So Broadridge is a large company, a lot of different products, functionality that we offer out to the industry. And, this is a platform that we take data in using REST APIs. There's about, around 500 and growing different API methods. So it is a large suite of testing that we ultimately end up have to create and manage all around REST APIs is the bread and butter. There is some file-based transactions that we do with some of our internal and external clients, but the reality is the way the system is being designed is we're taking some of those file-based transactions and kind of converting them to APIs. So everything around this platform is really REST API driven. There is some UIs on the product. For the most part, it is just a standard platform that people will plug into. But even the internal UIs that we have and are building out, they're really all based off of the APIs. So you come in there and you think you're using the web front end, that's great, but ultimately any of the transactions, the data getting read into it, sent back down to the system, again, all relying on these REST APIs. Okay. So, just other things and details that really come into play here that we'll tie up with is, there is a lot of code deploys and reconfigurations, especially in the QA environment, could happen at any time. There is controls, so the team is aware of it, but at the same time, we do want to make sure that it's clear that these are not, things can happen, so there's a lot of stuff that we'll go through, and I'll talk through some of those pieces later on. And the big thing too, Sauce Labs API testing platform is really the heart of our automated testing, and I will explain in detail why that is over the next set of slides. Okay, So I wanted to start out with just kind of like the version we're using. You're going to see this, and that's right, the current branding I know is Sauce Labs API Testing Platform, but you will see it through the screenshots, as API Fortress, and that's just kind of the version that we're using right now is called API Fortress. So you'll hear me probably bounce between those, but I'll probably try to stick with one of them. Okay, I did actually put a lot of, gray marks over the screen, right? It's one of those redacting the names to protect the innocent type of thing. So, some of those pieces, we just wanted to keep it sort of high level, focused on the tool, not the product, organization, things like that. So this is really going to be around, our use and how we apply, just the different features and functionality within the products that we're testing. All right. I will say this is the screen that I start and end with on my day. It's all based out of Chrome. So open up the browser. This is my home page when I go through it, and just constantly monitoring as per pretty much the majority of my organization that's using API Fortress. So tests are consistently running. This is an actual shot that I took right before this recording, and then from there you can actually see, just things are running constantly throughout the day. So this gives you the past 24 hours, but I will say the tool has pretty much been running, for well over a year now, and, we have these dashboards and everything that we just constantly monitoring. So, and one of the other pieces I would just sort of want to reiterate is that this is not meant to be a training on the tool itself. There's a lot of like basic functionality in there. We can save that for other presentations or, work with Sauce Labs to get. This is really just going to be, minus the base functionality of writing tests, but, going through and just how does the team use it, and, what are we going to do for writing and executing some of the tests, standard functionality, but then the dashboards, usage, and all those other fun pieces. Okay, so one of the first things I wanted to talk about, and I think this is one thing that's been nice compared to some of the other tools I've tried to use within the industry over the years, is that, this is a web front end, so everybody has access to it. There is roles set up in there that you can define for different individuals when they log in. So we have our development, our QA team, you'll see it as product owner or business, just depending on what kind of organization you come from. They all have access to it, and, depending on especially like any of the deployments, any things they were expecting, we have a large set of regression built out across all of our different API layers, and they each can come in and, depending on what they're interested in, go through and look at the dashboards to make sure it's good. The development team may know they're deploying it. They can get the code out into QA, come in here, they can trigger tests to run, or they can come in and just, know it's going to be on the schedule, because we coordinate a lot of that with everybody, and take a look and make sure that, they're expecting everything stays green, right? You can see a couple little things here with a few red tests, but for the most part, our expectation is that everything's going to stay green. QA will constantly monitor it because we do just make sure there's new data configurations that could be introduced, passcode deployments. So we just continue to monitor them and make sure that there's everything's going good. All right. Our big thing we look for obviously is failures. We do track this. This gives us great insight into stability of the product. If we know nothing is really happening, it should stay green all the time. Any kind of quality of the product, quality of the code, any trends that we look in there, we actually get into not just, just looking at it from day to day, but there's good filtering in these dashboards where you can come in and do ranges to kind of find out, how was it during this time frame, and just look for any kind of trends, whether we see failures happening, specific days, specific time frames. And it's a really great view that some of the other tools never really gave us before, because yes, you get the pass or fail, but you don't get all these good measurements, numbers, statistics, some very good dashboards to come in and, weed through all of the data. Right. Another piece that we get into, and this is one we really live in a lot, is going to be around the API quality. This is more, especially on the management side, the business, some of the development we get into. But, For this one, there's like a functional view, of the API quality portion. You look at it per project. So this is just one of our projects that we've been building up. You can see in here, there's just a small number of tests. February is when we really started building it out. March, April is just continuing to grow, as far as our numbers of tests and executions and how we're able to go through them. This really gives us good success ratios. You can kind of tell from month to month, the first one in here, 100% success currently, which is up almost, over 7%. So we probably around like a 93% before. So again, goes back to that stability and all of those other pieces. Right? Some of the other ones, if they're not staying stable, we can kind of take a look at it and review. Again, it goes back to the dashboard. We can filter by this specific test. Let's find out, why it failed 31 times. You can quickly tell by looking at these views. There's like the gray dots means it's probably something that's brand new. The green, if you see green or red, that's a trend compared from month to month. So gray, this is fairly new test, so therefore, maybe that's why it's, kind of running at that 60-80% success rate. But we'll go in and, figure it out, when it comes down to it. So this tool gives us a great insight into that. Goes back to this particular view. It's really the test designers, right? The team will go in, write a test, and we want to monitor it to make sure if there's any maintenance or anything else that we want to go on. So we go in and, the testing team and designers will come in and watch this piece. But, we don't know from this view whether it's going to be, is it the API itself failing? Is it the assertions in the test failing? That one we have to go back to the dashboard, find instances, but this helps us really go through and stabilize a number of our tests because, obviously anomalies happen, but we want to, really get it down to where, 100% success ideally is possible when it comes down to it, but, you got to monitor and check it out to know for sure. Right. Now, the performance one, this is actually one of the more valuable pieces that a lot of the business, the developers, even the QA people, have really enjoyed. And we get together, huddle up every few weeks, once a month, that type of thing, just depending on the number of deployments and that have been going on. But the product owners, do like to monitor this because it gives us our response time. You can't really see it again. I know I grayed out some of this, but that'll actually talk about the endpoint, so we could actually tell the API that was being tested at that point. We can see what is its response time, performance trend. Everything is green here, so things have gotten faster. It's very easy and visual. So if you see something red, you should take a look at it. Blue is kind of normal, for what it's expecting. Gray, just not enough information to tell you if there's a trend or not. But you can tell by the number of hits, how much we're exercising these, the average response times, and you really get into just being able to dive into it because different APIs, we expect them to respond at different time frames, right? If they have, milliseconds for some of the smaller response bodies. In some cases, we could have some very large response bodies, and we expect larger ones. But we do keep an eye on this because some of them, a lot of them, we know we wanted to keep at least get faster and stay under a certain time frame, just depending on what the API is. Now, one detail, and again, this would not going to really cover it through this presentation, but I did want to say for anybody that's out there, there is ways, and it's the terminology within API Fortress is footprints. You can design things so that your endpoints show up exactly as you expect them. And that's actually been something we got into and really focus in on with our design, because now we can have one API. And if you think about a GET, right, there's different filters like return back one item, return back 1,000 items, in your GET call. The tool itself by default may group it together because it's the same API, just like a different header was passed in. Well, now you can go in with footprints, and if you're designing with this particular section in mind, you can now, get the data to show properly. So you could say, here's a GET 1 versus a GET 1,000. And that way you can even check your response times to see, getting 1 returns back in X, getting 1,000 returns back in Y. X should always be less than Y. We're in good shape, that type of thing. But, there's a lot of designing to get this section to be useful and valuable. And again, we've partnered up with our product owners, our business, the development team for however they want to see it. We may write specific tests, but if they want to look at this quality and performance of the actual API itself, we go through and look at this particular one. So here, we can kind of see, on average, the API itself, is up about 99.97% of the time. This is QA, so that's great. Average response time across all APIs, not as valuable, but it is good to see, that we are at, 311 milliseconds, right? So 0.3 of a second, and it is getting faster, right? We've gotten twice as fast in April as it was to March. So our average response time is dropping, at a pretty good rate, which is good. That's excellent. That's something we develop, watch for, and program for. Tool helps out with this. And so from here you can see a lot of greens, 100%, the blues, the 98%, which is still good, 99%, but, we may want to take a look at it. And that's all, between as the organization, we can determine if this is good enough. Again, QA numbers, this tool, if we were looking at UAT, that type of thing, production, we may want to see hundreds across the board. All right. So kind of jumping into some of the other pieces that we talk about, I know like the CICD piece is a big topic right now for a lot of different areas, and this has been one of the newer areas that we focused on because we've been building out. We got hundreds, if not, getting closer to like the thousands of tests when it comes down to it. We've been running them, and we're using a lot of the scheduling capabilities of the tool. We've been, over the past few months, partnering up with the dev team, for them to use it. And in there, we basically have Jenkins, and we've been, building in as part of their CI/CD work. We've used like the APIF version 3 endpoints. This is just a little bit of the documentation here. The link is in there. You can find it on the official websites. But we were actually able to go in, using their documentation, build out our own Jenkins pipelines. So the scheduling is great. We could manually trigger it off. That is all, used constantly. But now when we get into, wanting to deploy code automatically, it's very nice because they've got deployment scripts. We now have our, own Jenkins pipelines for execution, and we've been able to marry those two up so that way when they deploy it, they can execute it, and again, go back to those dashboards and review it. So it's all sort of self-contained within there. And one of the really fun things that I've liked about it is as we continue to write tests, where, we want to add some of those in, maybe not all of them, but some of those into our deployment scripts, right? We may have our run all suites, that we run, on a limited fashion. We may have, for some of our deployments, we have our smoke sets that we just want to run our quick sanity test. It's up to the user, however we want to do it. But the good thing is that the individuals that are writing the test will have all the pipelines linked together and executing, but we've actually used this tag-based execution. So now any test that we come in, Jenkins Smoke, for example, we can say tag the test with this. It will automatically get added in, or if we know a test has been failing for some reason, whether it's maintenance, bugs, defects, and we want to try and take it out of rotation, we just take that tag away. When we're ready to put it back, we can add it in. So it's really helped out the QA team much easier, get involved in plugging our test in, because it's all as simple as tagging your tests, through the tool itself. So that has been a good success because we are, trying to get into the in-sprint automation. We're writing tests, daily at this point in time. And so, like I said, the team can just come in and add them in. So it's been really good, and they just automatically get called. All right. So now we get into some of the data validation versus functional validation. We have a couple of other tools that we use. We have a number of Python scripts that we end up tying because there's some back-end pieces that we have to do, whether, if you remember, I was talking about loading data files. We now can create those dynamically, have them loaded in, and then using those API Fortress endpoints, we're able to trigger the validation. So we know what files we're loading in, dynamically creating them. We can now pass in whatever dynamic values we want validated through the APIs. So we're loading files in. using our basic scripts, triggering in, the API tests themselves to go validate all of the testing, and been very successful for that. And it's helped us sort of like round out our automation suites and regression suites that we're building in there. We've been able to go through and some of the pieces too. I kind of say more of like a little mini load test type of thing. We've got some other tools that we would use for our full bore load testing, but by writing in some of the loops on the Python scripts, we can have it sort of replicate what the clients are doing, placing files, running through them over and over again. It's very easy to do and control. We can, just go in with a few modifications, and then we can basically just have it go through, whether it was like APIs or anything, just go in and just keep looping through and, have it go for the next hour, that type of thing. And that's helped identify a number of different problems. And the great part is, all of the results of it are saved in API Fortress. We can go back to those dashboards, and again, any of those kind of tests that we've run for the products, we can go back in over time and then see how they were successful or not. So it really helps us keep that one big view. Just like with a lot of shops, we do have Selenium scripts for some of the UIs that do exist. API Fortress, even though we're doing UI basic tests. I mean, the dashboards, it's just very nice to have a single view where you can go and see everything. So we've even built in for our Selenium scripts, which are API, web UI based. They'll go in, do their full execution validation, and then we just have some simple little Fortress tests that, they don't execute any APIs, but we will pass data in from the Selenium executions. And from there, we can then assert on the data that we pass in, right? If you think about it as simple as, did it pass or fail? Set that as a variable, pass it in, and then we get into API Fortress, and then it will just go in and assert that, yes, it passed, it'll show a pass in there. So now we've really been able to start to mix together a lot of our API tests that are doing a good functional ones. We've got the file-based tests, loading them in, going through and doing that validation. Our UI tests that will come in and, pass in the results. And for any of the products, layers, however we organize it, we are able to take all of that and get a single view. So we trigger everything, in some cases, go through and then just look at the results, do a nice web front end, easy to digest. You don't have to show different tools and different result sets to your business partners, your dev partners. They learn one set, they have a web front end, they can view it from anywhere and go in, and it comes down to that single pane of glass for all of our automation. And basically, because of these endpoints and the product itself, it's really helped us, get that view and made it just a lot easier for, everybody in the organization to go in, create, test, execute, follow, track, trend, everything like that I talked about at the beginning. So really has been powerful, and we've been using it for a while now, and the team has really grown into it, and it's helped out a ton when it comes down to it. And we can always show any trending for the past year for any one of our products if you wanted to, year plus. So in conclusion, Sauce Labs API testing platform really is the backbone of our automated testing strategy. We're driving it as an API-based platform. We drive those tests first, but like I said, UI test, file-based test, everything is loading in there and going from there, and we're able to view and see all of our data historically. All right. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.